Okay, so Daisha, do you have any questions?
No, ma'am. Well, I have a question for you.
Okay.
Um, I'm taking anatomy 2 for you, and it's online. So how would that go about the lab? Like the lecture and the lab is online. So how is that going to work?
Okay. So we're gonna do something kind of similar like this, where for lab, okay, so let's just talk about lab. I'm going to do this right, because it's not a face-to-face lab, it is online, but it's going to be like this. We have those lessons, each week you have lab exercises for, lab 1, 2, 3, 4, all the way through AMP2, because we'll start with blood and then go to cardiac and then blood vessels and lymphatic system. And that's the content for exam 1. And so I'm going to zoom the lab ahead, just like we're doing now. All right. You'll have quizzes due the following week, same as we're doing now. And the exams will be online. You just will never be coming onto campus. So it's going to be online, but it's still going to be the same thing. You don't have to buy another lab book. Um, it's going to be just like this one, actually. Except for this one, we were, really we're supposed to be meeting face to face. But after we went left during week 2 and 3 to kind of quarantine, no one ever came back because they started liking just being able to Zoom this. And, so it's not going to be live Zoomed. It's going to be, I'll Zoom it like I'm doing this, unload it up, and it's going to be the same kind of a schedule. All right. And it's actually more, we do 4 labs exam, 4 lab exam, 4 labs and an exam. All right. Um, for the summer, right, Daisha?
Oh, yes, ma'am.
Okay. Lecture is going to be similar. So, and that's my goal to hopefully in the next 2 weeks is so I can get maybe 5 days off in between semesters, is I'm going to try to at least get the first week of labs for AMP2 lab and the first chapter or so of, or at least hope maybe even the first 2 weeks of the Zooms on lecture material as well. So the online is going to be, I'm going to Zoom a chapter, because we do about a chapter a week. It'll be a Zoomed lecture. So I'm going to be talking about it and you won't be live Zooming with me, but I will load it up. All right. And really similar to lab in that, then you'll have a quiz the following week, and every 4 chapters you're going to have an exam, and it'll all be online. Right. So again, the notes are up there. Are you Daisha, you're in the lecture class for AMP1, right?
Yes, ma'am. But online.
It's totally online.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. This will be like you're not I don't use Pearson. So you're gonna have to decide about that. Now, I will say that I can and I do. I put up the link for Pearson so people who bought, the book that came with the Pearson Access, it's good for a year. And you can go in there. Have you been onto the Pearson site where when you log in through master my
Yeah.
lab mastering or whatever the heck it's called, when you get in there, you have over to the left hand side, you have a little study area option. I don't know if you've ever noticed that, but
Yeah.
when
Sorry. Yeah. It's just like my other classes. Like, is there a link for you to go to the book itself on
right,
the?
right. So yeah, on from the course page, on the home course page, right, to the lower left hand side. I'm talking about kind of 2 different things, so kind of stay with me. Yes, that's how you go into that Pearson. And with the e-campus classes, these standardized classes, there's usually a series of, well, that's usually where you take your quizzes. You have homework assignments, you have mastering, study guide things, you have a different assignments that are there every week, right? I don't I don't use those, I don't use any of those. I just have the notes, I lecture on it, and then you take quizzes on it, period. But if you have that Pearson access because you used it in AMP1 class, you can still go in there. There are no assignments to be completed. Everything you need to complete is right on in my courses, on the SPC course page, website. You don't have to go anyplace else. But if you do go into that Pearson, all right, once you get in there, to the left hand side, there's a legend. If you've ever noticed it, maybe look when you go this time. one of the options to the left-hand side says study area, and you can click on that, and then you wait a moment and it goes, okay, and then you get this prompt, launch study area. Click on that. That takes you to all these different resources that the publisher has, for anybody that has purchased the textbook. All right. I can, if I wanted to, put assignments in there, and it's like a menu. I check off exactly, which study module and which homework and which quiz, I want you to have assigned to this course, during this week and this week and this week. Well, I don't really find those have been actually very helpful, personally, for the face-to-face classes here. So it's not going to require that, but you can still take advantage of some of those sources there that let you play around with. They've got some flashcards there, giving them, the content of the entire chapter. There's some videos. They're not necessarily for every single chapter, but there's some good ones, and there's some very good ones for AMP2 for blood pressure, mean arterial pressure, a few other, looking at some EKGs and things, that can be helpful. But I don't use Pearson for any assignments, any quizzes, anything other than that. I mean, absolutely nothing. So that will be the difference. All right. And you may or may not like that. So, again, I often will ask people, that are now finishing the AMP1 that they're doing as an eCampus class, a standardized class, where you have to go to the Pearson site and take those assignments, is how helpful did you think that was? Because what I found is a lot of students after a while said it was so time consuming. I really didn't think it really helped because, I mean, it's interesting, but when it came down to the quizzes and the exams, it never seemed to really match up. That's what I had experienced. But some people, they just bang that stuff out because it's about 40 or 50% of your grade completing those things, from the Pearson site. And then they just go back to focusing on the notes and listening to the videos. I think it's mostly Dr. Naravani, maybe, that's in those, but, in any event, that's what they focused on, and that's how they did well, on the exams. So Daisha, what did you think about, did you find those Pearson assignments helpful, or did, because if you did, you might want to stick with that format, of on an eCampus class. Go ahead, respond.
Well, yeah, because I watched the videos because we had the PowerPoint, like the slides of the videos that he did in the actual videos. Like the first assignment, the very first one, I did the textbook because I didn't know there were videos to it until after I had already did my own notes. But then I watched his videos and I used that. It helped me with the assignments too.
Okay, well, and but what I guess what my question is that, because that's kind of what I do is I'll read through the notes and, and I give you examples of things. I don't do a lot of draw. Like, I know he has a tendency to draw on a tablet or something. I don't know how to do that, but what did you think about, I mean, how helpful did you find it to use those assignments at the Pearson website, to teach you what you need to know, or how effective was that, when it came to exam time?
Well, when I watch his videos for the notes, like the notes basically are some of the questions they ask on the Pearson assignments. And so it's kind of like all a review until you get to the exam. So I just I do the homework and then I review my own notes from the videos.
Okay, well, all right. So that being said, then what it sounds like is that you found the Pearson work there to be helpful to make you successful in the exams, because the exams, really carry a lot of weight. So if you like that format, then I would look for a strictly eCampus class, and using that format. And I would say that when it says online, I would say the Seminole campus and maybe some of the Clearwater campus classes, when they say online, it's probably going to be using that format, especially the Seminole campus. But although it's online, this class, it's based out of this Gibbs campus. And what we're trying to do is like, look, we still have to have some of the classes on the Gibbs campus could be face-to-face. Some of them are still gonna have to be online. And that the following semester, we'll probably change it from an online status to a face-to-face, or a live online or something, and so that status may change. So what it's going to be like is, yes, I'm going to read through the notes. It's going to be fewer notes. I will say that, on that standardized course that you're in now, that I think it's with Colin Everhart probably, is that, when you get the PowerPoint and the notes put up there, it's the PowerPoint for the entire chapter from the publisher. Not too much of it is ever weeded out. And I would say that most of the notes, from the instructors, at least on this campus, when it's, supposed to be a face-to-face, is a lot of it is either narrowed down or kind of rewritten and kind of personalized a little bit, so that you don't try to go over every single thing, because there's sometimes 125 PowerPoints, in a chapter, and it's really hard to cover that in what, 2.5 hours. We have each lecture is an hour and 15 minutes twice a week. So it's, really rather difficult to cover all that. And actually it's a little bit of overkill. So the lectures that we have here are a little more synopsized, I guess you can say, and a little more consolidated. Not synopsized, but really consolidated, to try to have like fewer PowerPoints, but maybe has the relevant information in it. So you don't have pages and pages and pages and pages of notes, so it will be somewhat similar, but I won't be using the Pearson site. So if you find that to be really helpful for you, then you might want to look for, a class that, that is structured like that. And I would say that a lot of the online course classes from the Clearwater campus and the Seminole campus, when they say online, will probably be that way, but most of them here, myself and Dr. Brightman are pretty much the only people teaching AMP2, at least lecture anyway. We're kind of doing it the same way. We're doing what we would do in a face-to-face class, but just zooming it from our office or whatever and taping it and recording it, and loading it up on the course page. And then he doesn't even have week to week. He doesn't have chapter quizzes. I'd have quizzes because it helps you review the material really and boost your grade a little bit before you get to an exam. But that you'll have quizzes and exams, just like you would if it was actually a face-to-face. So I hope that helps you. It's kind of a long explanation, but there are different formats, which is very confusing. We just had, a staff meeting, faculty meeting about that it's really not clear, the different mediums, and we're, to communicate that to you as well as to us, because I'm like, well, what does that mean? Sometimes they have a class listed like for the fall, and it will say it's a Tuesday, Thursday class at, let's say, 11 a.m., which is a similar one I have for AMP1. And on Tuesday, it gives you a room number, but then it shows then the Thursday when it would meet, it'll say online. And I'm like, so what are we doing? Are we meeting face-to-face one day and online the other? And it's not clear, and I think I could gather between that status would mean you're assumed to be meeting face-to-face, but if something happens with COVID or so forth, you need to have online capability at home or somewhere in the event that the class has to go online for a few weeks, or even maybe, God forbid, something happens, we have another outbreak and we just go back online for, the remainder of the semester. So I think that's what that's supposed to mean. If you see a definitive time with a classroom on one day that it meets, and then on the other day it says online, I'm pretty sure what that's supposed to mean. And I think they're supposed to send emails out to students, is to letting them know that it's going to initially be face-to-face, but it may have to go to an online medium, and you need to be prepared for that. Yeah, who would know? So anyway. All right. So if you have any other questions about that, let me know, Daisha, because you should, if you really like that Pearson stuff, you need to get a class that has that's utilizing that, because I'm not going to do that. But you can go, to that website and use that study area and look at all these different, exercises and practice quizzes and exams, and they have all this stuff that's already there without, having to necessarily go through particular assignments that have been selected for you. So, so let me know what you end up deciding, because I'd be interested.
Okay.
Okay. All right. So we are on lab 12. I zoomed it and it's up there. So, just hopefully you look through it. The models are here in the room, so they were available to be observed by you guys. If anybody wants to come in, this is our last lab. Your exam is next week. You have a quiz on this material that will be due next Wednesday night. And then Thursday will be your practical exam. And that's your last exam. So if you have any SSI credits that you want, because you performed the SSI, I need to have that by exam 3, not the next day, because Friday after that, the grades get submitted, boom. So, and a few of you did not get your exam completed last night. So I sent you a little text thing through the course page to say, hey, you didn't take your quiz. I'll leave it open until tonight. So get it done tonight. All right. And just stay on top of this. Is one more. And then the exam 3 and boom, it's done. So you're going to be hippy skippy happy. And this lets you then really focus on, the final exams that you have, in any other course. So it's kind of nice to kind of grind it out and get it done. All right, so what I'm going to do is we have 2 slides, to look at. I know that there's some pictures on the course page, but I kind of like putting them up here because I can really kind of point to things a little bit better. So I'm going to, let's see, turn this, let me just get this broadcasting from my instructor's computer, and then I'm going to turn the lights off so I can focus on this. Even from scanning, what we call scanning, you can see the retina. It just takes a minute for the camera to warm up, and it's going to put it on here. So there we go. Ooh. All right, so the first level of magnification used whenever you're looking at slides is the lowest level, which is called scanning. It's not called low, it's called scanning. And we were talking about in lecture how you can see, that you're looking at a region of the retina across the eyeball, that eyeball model, which is a slice across it, right? So you can see all 3 tunics. You have the outer connective tissue layer here. Look at all this white stringy material. That's your fibrous tunic, vascular tunic, sensory neural tunic. This is the sclera, the whites of your eyes. This is the choroid, the highly vascularized area that looks like dried blood in there. And then here we have the retina, right? 3 layers of cells. So I said the thickest layer of dark purple staining nuclei is the photoreceptor layer. Then we have the bipolar layer. And on the surface of the retina, intimate with the vitreous humor, which should all be here, that is your ganglion cell layer. And this is just on the lowest level of magnification, scanning. So, you can often see a lot of what you need to see, right on scanning, but we're going to go up to low, which lets us see a little more detail. All right, there we go. All right, so we have to the right-hand side, we have the whites of the eyes, sclera, choroid, the retina, and our 3 layers of cells, photoreceptor cells, bipolar cells, ganglion cell layer. And then if I go up to high power, then it gets, sometimes when you go up in magnification, it becomes a little too, too much, but this is actually pretty good. So we've lost the sclera to the lower right-hand side because we just magnified. But here, you can see what would be the choroid, kind of dry blood looking. Here is our photoreceptor cells. See the darker purple nuclei, that layer of a bunch of dark purple nuclei. Then a thinner, more dispersed layer, bipolar cells. And then you have your ganglion cells on the surface that every once in a while you can see a fairly dark staining nucleus, but they're more translucent cells, and they're kind of in between, few and far between, so to speak. Like you can see a few right there. So these on the surface here, on the concave surface, because the eye is round. So these would be the ganglion cell layers. Here are your photoreceptor cells, These are photoreceptors. They respond to light photons conveyed on cranial nerve. 2, your optic nerve. What else should you know? That's really it. The whole thing is the retina. That is the sensory or neural tunic. The tunic is just another word for layer. I think that's it. I like this slide because it looks a lot like the ones in the textbooks. The ones in the textbooks often have your ganglion cell layer, the nuclei taking up more stain and things. And sometimes the bipolar layer will be really thicker than this. And I'm like, it really is almost, and I've never seen a slide, really face-to-face slide that had it any thicker than what you're currently seeing. The photoreceptor layer is like the thickest purple region, then in a narrower purple, dark purple region, and then virtually, no purple nuclei, a few scattered here and there on the ganglion cell layer. So that's our retina. Then we're going to look at taste buds. And those are only 2 slides. Okay. Now, there are a few things you should be able to know on the slide and on the tongue, because this is a tongue. You have to look for and if you were here doing this face-to-face, and that's where coming back and doing a face-to-face lab, you guys are going to go through a little shock, I think, because it's a while, you're pretty much in lab, especially in A&P2. Sometimes we can get out of there early, like in an hour and a half, but it's not uncommon to be there for virtually the entire time, because the first 20 minutes, 15 minutes is just giving the weekly quiz. So I might just keep, when we really go face-to-face, truly face-to-face back, which probably won't be until spring, I might just keep those quizzes online, because every time we have to have a quiz at the beginning of class, it takes away a good 20 minutes or so, almost 30 minutes of the lab time. So I'd rather just be able to have those quizzes online and just move on. And then the exams, you have to show up face-to-face and take them in a formal practical setting, and they're all fill in the blank. So they become a little more challenging. But in any event, the histology, we need to be able to catch up on how to use a microscope, because when you get to micro, you're not going to know how to use microscope. All right, so here we have the surface of the tongue, and we said in class, in lecture class, that the surface, the tongue sort of has the same epidermal layer to the top. You can see it undulating just like the epidermis did, and then the dermis and hypodermis, when we looked at the integumentary system. So this tissue up here is stratified squamous epithelium. And embedded in that and pointing toward the lumen, the crevice part, a papillae on the tongue, are going to be your taste buds extending toward this lumen. Because as you eat food and it mixes with saliva and aqueous solution, the food is going to pass into these troughs. And when they do, the little pore openings of these taste buds are able to interact. The food can kind of enter into that pore and interact with the gustatory cells that are found there. And then those receptor cells can respond to the presence or lack of different substances, within the food you're eating: sweet, sour, salty, bitter, or umami. And then at the base of it, it would have a sensory neuron that would convey that sensation of taste, to the insula lobe, or insula / parietal lobe, that region. And depending on the region of the tongue that you're stimulating, will depend on which cranial nerve it will be conveying that. So we know that there are 3 cranial nerves associated with taste: 7, 9, and 10, facial, glossopharyngeal, and vagus. We're not going to necessarily point to an anterior tongue and go, which cranial nerve would convey taste from here. But you should know that, because when you get into nursing and you're doing a cranial nerve assessment, then, you need to know, hey, if I'm testing the anterior tongue, for taste, that's facial nerve. That is different from the back tongue, and it's different from down lower in the throat or the epiglottis. All right, so this is scanning. I'm going to go up in low power so we can start to see some of these structures a little bit in more detail. Ooh. hopefully this is a pretty good slide, I think. All right, so that's low power. And then I'm going to go to high power. So hopefully I'll find a good example of a taste bud here because they look kind of like I said, like an orange or a grapefruit that's peeled. There's a pretty good one right here. Okay, so this is all stratified squamous. See this round structure here? This is a taste bud, right? You can see these gustatory cells here. So it kind of looks like sections of an orange or a grapefruit, after you peeled it. Here is a little pore opening right here. And sometimes you can actually see little hairs extending from there. And so as food passes into this crevice, it is able to enter through that pore, interact with these gustatory cells, and then generate action potentials on the particular sensory portion of the particular cranial nerve that supplies that area of either the tongue or the throat. Let me see if I can find another one. I like doing this stuff. I like some histology I like, especially when we have good slides representing something. Sometimes it's not too much fun because it's hard to get a good slide of it. Here's a pretty good, oopsie. Here's a pretty good one right here. Here's a taste bud amongst all this stratified squamous. And you have these gustatory cells here. Here's another one. Here's another one. Sometimes once you get close up, when you back out, you get a better feeling of what you're looking at because sometimes things get over magnified. Let me move over to this side here. Yeah, those are pretty good too. Let me just, kind of wiggling around here. But you can see these circular structures. Here's one. Here's a pretty good example. There's another one over here. You don't find them in all areas of the tongue. So that's where you have to kind of be able to browse around a little bit. Sometimes I'll just go down to magnification because I can see more. And then let's try going over to this area. Maybe they will come in. I know I've had some slides that were put out here for me that were great. You can see the little hairs coming out in the pore. I was like, oh, that's cute. You can see them here. And here's a pretty good one. You can't see the opening all that well, but you know at the apex of this, that's where it will be located. Taste bud, gustatory cells. Here's another one. Here's another one. All scattered about. Let's go to them. Those are pretty good. And kind of back to almost to where we started, but so here's another nice taste bud gustatory cells. Little pore opening there. You can kind of see a little change in the density of the tissue. There's a little more translucent looking than to the superior and inferior aspect to that. So yeah, those would be your little taste buds. They're pretty cool. But no, they're not found on all surfaces of the tongue, only in certain regions. So when you look across this slide, you might work to the, you go to the lateral aspect and you're like, wow, I can hardly see any. Well, that's because there aren't any found there, like in these areas here. Okay, so let me turn this off. Let me just turn the lights back on in here. So when I zoomed it, and we looked at some images on the course page. So when I zoomed the lab and we went through all the images, after we looked at the slide, that is there up on the course page for the taste bud, after that, there's a little index card, and I wrote by hand questions that I could ask you. So it says, okay, identify the structure. So if I ask you, identify that structure, and we're looking at a slide and I'm pointing some, it would be a taste bud. Identify the cells, gustatory cells. I even give you the answer. Identify the cranial nerves, 7, 9, and 10, facial, glossopharyngeal, and vagus. What kind of receptor, like that? What, classify that receptor? It would be a chemoreceptor. Gosh, I think I gave you 5 or 6 possible questions I could ask you from it, and the possible answers. So that's what you should be thinking of when you're looking at, some of the histology at this point. And I think that is it. Everything else I went over. We went through the test your knowledge. And one of the last, pages on here has, 8, the different receptors, the different sensations, and you match up the sensation to the type of receptor, whether it's a mechanoreceptor, photo, chemo, or nociceptor. All right. Questions at all? If you haven't had a chance to go through the Zoom, I mean, that's fine. You have time. If you haven't completed your quiz that was actually due last night, you have until tonight to do it. Please do it and get it completed so that, we just have this last material to quiz on. And, you can go through all this material just this weekend. Take that quiz. It's really not due till, next Wednesday night before exam 3. And then just start looking at really, the 3 chapters or the 3 labs you have to know, and start reviewing that and do it, every other day. And you should be in good shape. Questions at all?
I did have a quick question about the student survey. After we complete it, you said you just wanted us to take a quick snapshot and then send you a message, right?
Right. I sent you an email and kind of gave you directions, but yeah, when you get to the end and you submit it, I haven't done one of these in probably a bazillion years, but you get this little message that comes up. It says, thank you for submitting and participating in the SSI. And it has like, it gives you the course and section number and then my name next to it. Try to take a snapshot with your phone, and then just attach it, either embed it in an email or just attach it, at the bottom of an email that you can generate it from the course page, go into our lab, go to the communications tab, you can go to the class list and then find me, click to the left of my name and create an email. And in the subject line, it retains the course and section number. Leave that there, don't do anything. Just attach the picture and send it to me, or, embed it in the body of the email and send it to me. I know what you're doing. I mean, I know why you're sending this to me. So you don't have to write it in there or anything, just send it. And then when I get it, I'll just say, great, or I'll say, oh, thank you, or, I'll confirm that I've received it. And then, you can look at your exam grades and one of them should have a bump of 5 points. And if you go to a comment section for that exam, it'll say something like +5 SSI points or, something like that.
Okay,
So
perfect.
you'll know which one it gets posted to. It doesn't really matter. I'll often take, if it's not, if you're not above 100 yet, I generally, will put it on the highest one. If the highest one is a 95, it'll be 100, or it could be the 80 to an 85. It doesn't matter because mathematically an average is an average, but, if you're not like at 100, or 105, then, I will just put it on the next lowest one.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. And that's hey Tyler, that's for lecture and lab. So if you haven't done that, chop, get that done today because you'll forget. And then the next thing you know, I said it needs to be done by exam 3. And the next day you're gonna, people every single time. And I'm like, I have to just, I have to have a deadline for something, so that I stick to. And that's one of them because it's laborious to go in and give you your credit and stuff. So so get it done before you forget and you won't be kicking yourself later, and me. Anybody else? Good question. Okay, well, if you have a question, then email me. I will be, no, we won't be back here on Thursday because we're having an exam. So, but I'll be in lecture, on Tuesday, Thursday for next week, and or at least Tuesday because Thursday will also be the lecture exam. But that exam, the lecture exam will be Thursday and Friday. So if you want to do lab on Thursday and you're in my lecture and you want to do lecture on Friday, that's fine. And yeah, really, that's about it. So yes, if you've registered for AMP2, for the either or lecture and lab here for me for the summer anyway, is that although it says it online, it is going to be online, but it's not using that Pearson website. If you have access to, I'm going to put it's called a widget there. You can click on it and you can go in and play around in their study area and find all these different, that's fine, but I don't use it over and over. I don't use it for any assignments or quiz taking. It will all be just like this. Quizzes are on the course page through my SPC. The exams will be on there as well. It'll be the same thing. The first exam is not honor locked. The last two are honor locked. And that lets people who don't know me, who really have to get to know me a little bit, is that, all right, let's get the first exam down, and get past that. But the summer session rolls pretty quick because most weeks are doing 2 chapters and lecture and 2 labs a week. And there are a few weeks like 4th of July and Memorial Day where you only do 1, but generally, we might kind of stick to, well, we could get away with that still. We'll still probably have it on that same schedule. Even though we used to have to do it that way because we were meeting face to face. And now that we don't meet face to face, we can really schedule anything online. But I think, we're going to still stick to what we would have used if it was truly a face to face. All right, so I guess if nobody has any questions, I'm going to close this out. Email if you have a question. All right, please don't go beyond the due dates because you'll be kicking yourself for it. All right, then ta-ta for now.